Hello, Village Heights. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Mother's Day. I didn't even plan this, but it just so happens that we're ending this dream collection. And moms, you're truly the one that makes the dreams happen, right? I mean, guys, if we're honest, the moms in our lives, they put the extra zhuzh on things that makes it a little more special. And so, moms, thank you for making the dreams happen, and happy Mother's Day. To any, whether you actually have a child or you're momming somebody. If you're a woman out there, you're momming somebody. So thank you for momming them. All right, so we are closing out this collection of Dream, week 4 of it, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I have. Dreams can be kind of abstract, and it can be a little crazy and exciting all at the same time, and I hope that I've helped you guys through your practical steps of not just dreaming like something that you can do on your own, but really dreaming God-sized dreams. Some things in your life where you're like, man, I would love to see this happen, but I can't do it on my own. I need the God of the universe to be involved in that. And so I hope these practical steps have helped you as we close out today. So a quick recap. In Easter, we talked about the ultimate dream fulfilled. Throughout history, creation has been trying to bridge communication, something to our Creator, to know our Creator better. And then with Jesus, it was the dream fulfilled. He helped us identify our Creator better in that we were able to get in sync with our Creator. And then a lot of times, a lot of Christ followers do this. You're like, oh, I was saved by grace, and now I'm just going to wait till I die. And then I get to go to heaven. And that's kind of something like, no, that's not how it works. You've been saved by grace, but that doesn't mean you have to stop dreaming. Keep dreaming. God wants us to do big things, be a part of big things in your context. But when it comes to a dream in your context, I mean, Jesus, the dream fulfilled, the ultimate dream, he did all the hard work on that. He literally carried it on his back for us. But now, for our dreams, it requires something. It requires some action from us, some steps from us. So as long as you have breath in your lungs, God's not done with you here on earth. So dream on. But as I said, dreaming in our context requires something else. There's components and how we approach a God-sized dream. And so over the last few weeks, so we talked about the ultimate dream fulfilled, and then the next week we talked about what the disciples did. So after Jesus shook the earth, he did his thing, he came back and he convinced them with the holes in his hands, the disciples, hey, it's really me, I'm here. And he did some more miracles, it's really cool stuff, right? But then he was going to leave, and they're ready to attack it, right? They're ready to get after it, to complete the dream of Jesus and what he was going to do here on earth. And then Jesus goes, wait, right? And so they had to wait. They had to wait for the Holy Spirit to come so they can have Pentecost, and all the cool things that happen there and the chaos and power and all of that. And then what do you do when you wait? And the only thing you can do, you pray. You talk to the one. So they waited and they prayed. And then last week, what do you do when the dream is kind of starting to get legs, right? It's starting to happen for you. How do you stay in line? You worship and you fast. Worship refocuses us back to the one who's actually doing it. And then we fast to change ourselves, not to change God. We're the ones that need to change. And whatever it's personally, in our circumstances, the cycles in our life that are causing us to be distracted, what we should be focused on, we fast to focus more on God to continue that dream as we align ourselves with what God is doing in our life. And I understand it's hard to dream sometimes. I get that. So we wanted to make that easier on you guys. So I created a playlist, not just I, the team created a playlist. If you go on there, all you do is scan this QR code. It's free. You don't have to have a Spotify account, but you might get some commercials. I don't know. But anyways, if you scan that, it'll take you to this playlist. And it's all songs about dreaming, appropriate songs about dreaming. And it's a kind of kickstart to help you. Music is a powerful thing. And so if you're having trouble kickstarting that dream or continuing the dream, because sometimes we end up in a place as adults, we're beaten to submission by life, and we think that we're not allowed to dream anymore. This will help, all right? So scan that. It's free for you. You don't have to pay for it. You can if you want, whatever. Just send it to me, Bill White. And the checks, in the mail. But, yeah, scan that, and enjoy the playlist with us. All right, so today we're going to talk about the last component of a God-sized dream. Now, it's not... The components that we've talked about are like kind of the main overarching. Now, there's more to it, of course, within your context for you to work out with God. But these I've been talking about are like the overarching ones that you can't go without. And so as the dream starts to take flight, these things I'm talking about today, these two components are crucial and vital to your God-sized dream. You can't continue, you can't see it flourish without these components, right? And so, and it's vital for the continuing of future God-sized dreams in your life. And the components I'm going to talk about, I'm going to dive a little bit into history right now. It's kind of, we see these big dreams happen and fulfilled in our lifetimes, and there's this characteristic about them that you find in these God-sized dreams. And you probably have wondered, if you've heard the whole collection, is he going to talk about the I have a dream? Yeah, I'm going to do it today, right now. So Martin Luther King Jr., August 28th, 1963, he stood before the masses and said the famous words, I have a dream, right? And he delivered something, right? He gave the people something. And he said, I have a dream, meaning it was his dream. In fact, it's recorded in time that one of his friends in the background said, oh, because he went off script. Everything he said was not in his script. He pushed it aside, and the person in the back goes, oh, we about to go to church. They don't even know it, right? And he did. He took them to church. And he began to say something and talk about his dream, but there is a characteristic to it that if you listen to it, who are the beneficiaries of his dream? It's not just him and his family and his dream. It's a dream that he had for all people, not just people that looked like him. And you would think he would be justified, and he would be justified in that moment to have a dream just for people that look like him. But he said, no, all men of any color. He's like, I want all men to have rights and be treated equally. And then he goes beyond that and said, in the future generations, he wants to live in a world, and wants his kids to live in a world where they'll be judged by their character and not the color of their skin. And that is a dream that we haven't seen completely filled yet. Now, they've made big leaps and bounds, but humans are humans, and we're still working on it. We're still trying to fulfill that dream to the top. The next one, and not to get them confused, Martin Luther, right? So Martin Luther lived a long time before Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther was the famous reformer. October 31st, 1617, he nailed his 95 theses to the church door. He had a vision. He had a dream. Something wasn't adding up. The way he wanted to see the general public respond to God and respond to church. And he had probably no intention for it to have the effect that he did. In fact, when he went up to nail it, you're not supposed to nail things on people's doors that's not yours, right? So I'm sure he went up there quietly, tick, 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 and then ran away. That's what I would do at least. And so he did this, but the whole reason for it was he was addressing a problem he saw in church. That it had to do with the church's sale of indulgences. There was something that they were pushing, and because now you go, why would they even believe that? How would that even be true? If you understand their context, the lack of knowledge they had about God, you would get this, right? And so they would tell them, if your loved one passed away, and you're not sure if they made it to heaven, you can come to the church and pay to have an indulgence to buy your loved one into heaven. And they believed it. The church was taking advantage of people. And not only that, it was terrible theology. That's not how it works. He didn't know it at the time. And it wasn't just to benefit him, but it benefited millions and millions of people after. All these people trying to find their way to God benefited from what he nailed to that door. And so because of that, I find it, I believe that's why, a big reason why we're able to be here today. And he reformed it for us and showed us that we're saved by grace and not by our deeds. For us personally, there was, in our life, dreams that happened. There was literally a dream somebody came to me with. And this story I'm going to tell you, I haven't told a lot because it sounds crazy, okay? And it's a little weird and hard to understand, as dreams can be. But I had this dream with this random coworker back when I still had my 9-to-5 job. And before I had my 9-to-5 job, I was in ministry. I started out in ministry out of college. And because terrible leadership, there's no other way to put it, we just ended up under some terrible leadership, selfish people doing selfish things, using some young, Hannah and I were young, we were eager, we were, gullible, all these things. And because of that, they derailed ministry in our life, our calling in our life. And so we were in this place, and that's kind of why I have nothing against a 9-to-5 job and the careers and all that, but it wasn't the calling that God had on my life. But we were doing it because we had to survive, right? And so we were just starting, like kind of talking about, I don't even know if it was called VLG Heights yet. I don't even know if we had a name for it yet, but we were feeling this pulling and tugging from God, saying, I want you to plant a church. I want you to get back into ministry full time. And so this friend, this coworker, she's an older woman. I didn't really hang out with her much. Honestly, I have a hard time even remembering her name because we didn't really talk that much. And I knew a lot about her because if you've ever met me, I ask questions. I like to know about people's lives. It's fun to me. I love people. And she, at this one specific morning, it was like in the middle of the week, nothing special going on. And I'm not a morning person. I know I look lively now, but it's taken a lot of coffee to get me to this point from this morning. I had to start early. And I'm at the copier, and so it's about 9:30 in the morning. And I'm at the copier, and I'm like, all right, let's get this going, Bill. Come on. We gotta make that dough, make that bread, right? We gotta get this going, make some copies, whatever, And this woman walks up to me, and randomly she goes, hey, it's going to be weird, but I had this vivid dream about you and Hannah. And in my head, I'm like, okay, slow down. All right, it's too early. Let me finish my coffee or have lunch first before I can even process whatever this weird thing is, what he was saying. And I knew she was a believer, because of the conversations we had, but we really weren't that close. And I was like, you know what? Okay, sure. What was the dream? What were we having? Because I wasn't done with my copies yet. And she begins to tell me, she's like, I had this dream last night. It was so real that I was traveling down a road, and there was grass on both sides, and it was coming up to a bend in the road where there was a body of water. And I was coming up, and I could see lights in the distance, kind of like emergency lights. And as I'm getting closer, I realize it's 2 tow trucks, and they're backed up to the water. And then as I got closer, I began to see the people that were there. You had your normal emergency people that were there, but then you and Hannah were standing there. I'm like, okay, and I'm thinking like, this is weird. What's going on? And she goes, and then I saw they were pulling something out of the water. Both trucks had their hooks in the water pulling something out. And as I was passing it up, it was revealed that it was pulling out 2 white SUVs. And then I drove by, and the dream was over. And I'm like, okay, sure. Why? Thanks for that. Hug. Okay, all right, goodbye. I'm going to go back to my desk, right? And I was like, man, that is so random, so weird. And I'm like, we don't really hang out. And so, like, why would she even tell me that, right? And I go home, I tell Hannah, and Hannah's like, wow, man, I don't know if that means something. And so there's this mentor in our life that we reached out to that had kind of studied that. He's like, dreams, because sometimes dreams have meanings to us. They do. And sometimes God speaks to us or through others through dreams. Now, there's some dreams that I think just don't mean anything. They just mean absolutely nothing, and I hope they never come true. It's some weird dreams that I have had. Depends on how late I've stayed up or what I've eaten. But, and so I go to him, and I describe the dream. He's like, okay, I think this means something, right? Now, remember, in the process that we were just starting back up, trying to get back into our calling. God, we feel like that tugging to start a church. And he says, well, first off, white in dreams means something righteous and holy. It means something that is of God, because God is pure, right? And he said, and the fact that it wasn't just one vehicle, it was 2 vehicles. This dream just wasn't for you, it was for you and Hannah, separately and together. And then he said vehicles were often thought to be ministry. It was a calling. It was a vehicle of something that you're going to get in this vehicle and you're going to go somewhere with God. And so I think basically God's telling you is that because of the bad leadership that you've had, they submerged your calling and you couldn't even see it anymore. And now God's about to do something great and reinstall your calling. Not just for one of you, but for both of you. God is about to do something great. And I remember hearing this, and I was like, wow. And I needed to hear that. Because as we were starting this process and telling people what we were going to do, they were like, man, that sounds great, but the Heights, it's a hard place. This many churches have tried, and they have failed. That's a real upbeat, conversation to have. They're saying, it's too expensive. The people don't want you there. It's going to be difficult. It's very political. All have been true. But we're here. We are here. It is happening, right? Fast forward a couple years. We're in the process of planting Village Heights, and it's kind of like it's trying to get legs. It's starting off. The dream is beginning to fly. And we found ourselves at this pastor's meeting. So if you're wondering what pastors do when you don't see them, sometimes we group together and we console each other. We're like, yeah, I don't have enough money either. Or, my church isn't growing as fast as I want it to either. Or I don't have a building either. That kind of stuff. And we mope and cry, and they're like, yeah, I got that difficult person too. None of you. It would be none of you. But I have that difficult person too I have to deal with, right? So we have these meetings. And so at the end of this meeting, and this was probably about 20 of us in the room, 20 pastors. Hannah and I are both there. And one of the more seasoned veteran pastors, at the end, they say, hey, can you just pray for the group, right? After we all just got done complaining and whining. And can you pray for the group? And Hannah and I are in the back. That's usually where we are, the back rooms. Unless there's an opportunity on the stage, we'll be in the back. We like attention. And he starts praying, right? And so when it's one thing for a pastor to pray, in a general setting. But when pastors get together and pray, it turns into another animal because we're all good at it, right? And so we start praying, working off each other, and everything starts getting exciting. And so that's happening. Then all of a sudden, this pastor, who we respected, he kind of just stops. And he opens his eyes, and he looks at Hannah and I, and he says, guys, I just have to I have this vision. And sometimes dreams are visions. And I have this vision that God's telling me something that you and Hannah, and he pointed us specifically, out of all these other pastors that were had better degrees and everything than us in that room, the two of you, you're going to have reserved seats at tables where others wish they could be invited to. Because we were in this place in a city where we didn't technically grow up in the Heights, and so we were trying to gain, how are we going to have influence? How are we going to move things along? We're coming with nobody. It's Village Heights started with just the three of us. And so how are we going to make an impact? And he basically told us that God is going to open the door, and he's going to give you seats at tables that others wish they could have because he wants to see you do something. And so, as you imagine, that is a little overwhelming for us. But then as we kept in the process, kept trying to see the dream come true, it literally started happening. It made no sense. Hannah and I have been invited to tables that we never qualified to be at. Never had the history or lineage or whatever it was to continue and to be at that table. But God had us there for a reason. That's literally happening today. In fact, in a couple weeks, 1 week, it's coming fast. In 1 week, we actually were invited and given, these are expensive tables, we were given 2 tables at this event. It's called the Prayer Breakfast. It's this huge thing. We're very prominent, the decision makers of Houston, not just in the religious fashion, but decision makers are going to be in this room at this prayer breakfast, and Hannah and I each have a table there. Come on, right? It's kind of okay, he literally meant it, that we would have seats and be given seats at a table people wish they could be invited to. And so it's happening for us. God, we're seeing the dream fulfilled. We're seeing some really cool things happen through these dreams, the effects of the dream. But sometimes when you're watching God do stuff, it's so out of the norm. Mentally, you're trying to bridge the logic. How do I identify this? How do I explain this? Am I just dreaming, or is this reality? Or is this my imagination? You ever done that? Where God does something crazy in your life, and you're like, I think that was just a happenstance. Luck of the draw. I wouldn't deserve that. Why would God care? You ever been there? You ever tried to dismiss it off? In us, as humans, we have this tendency to lean towards a vacuum lifestyle. And what I mean in the vacuum lifestyle is that you live in a vacuum, that everything dies within itself, right? So everything that you do dies within you, meaning that you control your reality. You control the elements that's right in front of you. And to a degree, this is true. What God gives you in your hands, you are responsible for that. And he expects you to do something with it and be good stewards with it. But when it comes to a God-sized dream, those dreams where it takes God to do it and you can't do it on your own, there are things happening in there that you can't do by yourself. You can't even explain it because it's happening in a realm that you have no control over. And it can be hard to balance that. It can be hard to say who or what gets credit for the crazy things that are happening. So because of that, it's easy to get misdirected, become dismissive. And so as humans, this is a survival technique, and it's not a bad thing, but it can be misused. We say to ourselves, if I can't make sense of it, I'm going to rebrand it. If I can't make sense of what's happening in front of my face, and if I can't tie logic to it, I'm going to rebrand it into something that I can understand, something that I can tell people about, and I don't sound crazy. As humans, it's easier to accept the tangible reality rather than accept the righteousness and connection to God that we have. The thing in your hand is a lot easier to explain than the vast God that's out there in the universe. And so we end up, and this is too much of a long jump for us mentally, so we disassociate what's hard to understand. To put it in a box, basically, we end up worshiping something that's not God. We end up worshiping something else and giving it credit. Every human worships something. And sometimes the rebrand becomes the idol. Whatever the rebrand is, that becomes our idol. And Scripture tells us, it's very specific, that we can't serve two masters. In the specific scripture in Matthew 6:24, some people think can't serve two masters. Oh, they're talking about God and the devil. No. It's actually talking about God and money. You can't serve God and whatever is in front of you, tangible thing that you have value in, right? And so it says no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You have to pick. It's either God or the things that are in front of you. And if we can be honest with ourselves, money can be translated to anything with value. So it could be your dream. Your dream is your dream because it has value to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be dreaming it, right? So if we're not careful, we'll end up worshiping the dream and not the dream fulfiller. In these dreams, we have fulfillment as we have progress. But as these dreams become to fly with that dream, in the events that happen, are you building an altar to God or monuments to yourself? Because it's very easy to say that I did it, right? You can get along in the process. You're getting pretty good at it. You get a little inflated. Oh, maybe this is me. Maybe there isn't this mystical God out there making this happen and turning the dials behind the scenes. Maybe it's really me. Become self-inflated as the dreams come true. For Hannah and I, this is a dream come true. Village Heights, the fact that you are here this morning, you are in these seats, and we are connecting, and it's Village Heights. This church is happening, is a dream fulfilled. But the fulfilling, I will say, is not finished. Okay, we're dreaming big. We want a building we can't afford, and we want, to reach a people that don't want anything to do with us, and we want all of these things. We want to be able to be generous in ways and things that we don't have, and money that we don't have. We dream big here. But just because the dream is being fulfilled, we will never, ever say, Village Heights is mine. Never. Because it's not. We might be shepherds here at Village Heights in this community, but we are sub-shepherds. The true shepherd is Jesus, and we get to operate under his shepherding, and he shepherds through us. So we'll never say it's ours. First, it's God's, then we are sub-shepherds. So it's not our altar, this is God's altar. Yeah. It's all credit goes to him. So that brings me to the final two components that I want to talk to you guys about. And I know you'd be like, man, I just want to hear him so bad. I wish he would say them. Here's your time. Get your pen and paper out. So these two components, they're critical from the beginning of the process to the end of the process and on. Critical to your God-sized dream. Those two things are consecration and legacy. Consecration and legacy. If you don't know how to spell consecration, it's okay. You can spell it later. Just do your best. Consecration and legacy keep us from that vacuum. it keeps us from creating a cycle of dying within ourselves, right? And so first is consecrate, and consecrate is basically allocating credit. That's what it is. Who gets credit for what's happening? It's declaring something sacred or holy, ordaining a moment or a place. It's giving credit to the one who's really making it all happen. When we consecrate our actions and ambitions to Jesus, it's not about our glory, it's about God's glory. So that's consecrate. And 2 is legacy. Legacy is not what you can accomplish. Legacy is what people can accomplish through you, through what God has done, through the dream that is coming true in your life. That is what legacy is. Success is succession. It's about continuing, growing fruit for those around you, passing the blessing on to the next generation. When God makes a promise and he blesses, he is eternal. His things don't die out. His motions don't die. We're the ones that block it and kill it with our selfishness. We take it into the vacuum and it dies there within us. But if we will consecrate and have legacy, it'll continue. Paul addressed this in Acts 17. So Paul is on his second journey. And as you read through Acts, it's really cool. The first part is like chaotic and exciting. And then as it develops, the dream is coming true. And then it's like him going from this place to this place to this place, right? So in Acts 17, we find him in Thessalonica. And then he moves to Berea. And then we find him in Athens, right? And in this process, Athens is actually a marketplace where dreams happen. So they have a dream for their family financially or whatever it may be, and so they use their talent and skills in their hands to create something in the marketplace, and then people buy it, and they give them money, and then they get to take that money back to their family and build the home and grow and grow and grow, right? Dreams are happening, being fulfilled in this marketplace. So in this process, they find Paul in Athens. And Paul is going around, and he's preaching, and he's bringing these new ideas to God, to them. And so in this place, there was something called the Areopagus. And the Areopagus was like the TED Talks of Athens. It was like, oh, you have this cool, inspiring idea or method. Come to the Areopagus. We want to hear about it, right? And they discuss, and they debate, and they want to hear from him. So they invite him to come give his TED Talk on the gospel. And as this is happening, and Paul is going through his journey, going from place to place to place, he has this vibe about him, right? So the dream has launched. It's being fulfilled, and you're going to find this as your dream begins to fly, that when you walk into rooms and you walk through open doors, things are just happening for you, right? And so every city that Paul and the disciples find themselves in, they cause a stir, right? They preach the gospel, they cause a stir, they make some people mad, but the gospel is so life-changing that they always gather followers. So from every city, it's they arrive, preach, cause a problem, leave with followers, okay? I am a 7 Enneagram, and I love a party. And so if I go to a party, and you kind of think back to your college days, party days, yeah, you could still be partying, I don't know. And you go into a place, and when I walk into a place and people are like, yeah, Bill's here, man, that makes me fly. Man, I'm just like, yeah, let's do this, okay? And so I can imagine Paul going from city to city, that they're like, yeah, Paul's here, he's causing a stir. And then when you think about when you leave the party, you're like, all right, I'm out, I'm going to go to this next thing. And everybody's like, I'm coming with you, right? After you do that so many times, you're like, man, I must be pretty great, all right? I got the vibe. People are digging me. Paul could have easily gone down that path, passing through city to city. He has the vibe. People are following him. He has this moment where he could feel completely inflated. And so in Athens, we find this hinging point of why Paul was different from everybody around them. Because everybody around them was having success, especially in Athens. But what was making Paul different? When he could have easily begun to change it and go, man, I'm doing great. This must be all me, right? So we find this in Athens. So as he's traveling through Athens, he's beginning to look at things and he sees things. And we find Paul's consecration and legacy. And it's all in this one speech that he has at the Areopagus. So we find in Acts 17, 22 through 29. It says, Then Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. Saying, you guys aren't dumb. I know that you know something is making this stuff turn and something is happening. It's beyond you, right? He's like, I acknowledge that. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God. So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship. And this is what I'm going to proclaim to you. So he's saying, guys, let me help you see something. You are delusion. You are worshiping things, but then there's some things you can't describe. And so you say the unknown God. He's like, I'm going to tell you who the unknown God is. He's known. He's very known. You just don't want to know him. All right? So this is what we're going to continue to say. He says, the God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands, and he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appropriate times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out to him and find him. Though he is not far from any one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your poets have said, we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by human design and skill. Paul is calling them out on their delusion. He's saying, I understand this is hard to bridge. I understand your logic is making it difficult for you to understand who the unknown God is and how involved he really is and known he really is. I get that. So I'm going to clear this up for you. You are worshiping the object rather than the one who created the object. You are worshiping the thing that's tangible, the gold, silver, stone, the valuables. He's saying the valuables are not God. He is the valuable creator. He's the one that makes all this great stuff. He made it and he gave it to us. This human deficiency has plagued humanity forever since historically we could track. In fact, in Deuteronomy 4:19, it says, and we look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all heavenly array. Do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping the things the Lord your God has a portion to all the nations under heaven. He's basically saying, I know you can see those things and they're tangible to you, but don't worship those things. Worship the one that made those things. This was thousands of years before Paul said what he said. And so this is a human deficiency for then and now. That means you struggle with this as well. And I know what you're saying. If I saw God do these crazy things in my life, I would never. Yeah, you would. You would. You absolutely would. Because at some point you will go, man, I am clicking. I am vibing. This is me. That's the danger of it. So don't worship the materialized dream. Worship the one who materializes the dream, one who makes it happen, the one who provides. Success can really change people. I've seen this happen too many times. I know people that were more holy than me, which is not hard, I get that, but I'm a pastor and I'm supposed to be holier, whatever it may be. I'm not, there's others that are better at it, but there's people that I know that I'm like, man, I'm a pastor, but man, you are really holy. Man, you are like connected with God. But a few years later, they end up in this arena where God is blessing them and they're having success. And they're getting money and attention and influence. And then something changes. And then they start going, maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it was me the whole time. Maybe I just got it going on. And not, God's just not on a back burner anymore, but he's been kicked out of the plane because they're like, maybe there is no God, and I've been my own God the whole time. That's a big problem with America because we're our ability to make things with our own hands and make it happen in our own way. We think we are our own gods. We are very close to doing that. And that's why we see these crazy documentaries, which you've probably watched, about these big churches doing these amazing big things, and God's doing all this crazy stuff to them. You're like, man, how could they ever turn on God? And then you hear these stories about them, which some of it's truth, some of it's embellished, some of it's blown up because it's the media and that's how they make money, right? They get your attention with this kind of stuff. But some of it, there's truth to it, and they're like, how could they ever? There's a human deficiency. They're like, man, I think I got this together, right? And you find these leaders who do these big things, and they end up in a bad place. The truth is, the more success you have, the bigger the dream is being fulfilled, the more vital consecration and legacy are. You need more and more of it. We do this by consecrating everything that's provided. Not saying, like, you're like, oh, it's God's, I can't enjoy it. No, he wants you to enjoy it. He's a good parent. He gives you something, like moms, come on, you can attest to this, especially today. You give your kids something, and you want them to enjoy it, but a little credit wouldn't hurt, a little thankfulness, a little acknowledging who provided it, because then what's that do to you, Mom? I want to give you more, right? I want to give you more. I want to bless you more. So consecrate everything, but don't idolize it. Don't idolize the stuff. We'll keep the channels between you and God open, and God will build upon that dream because of it, because consecration is like bank deposits into your legacy bank. Because the more you consecrate and give it back to God, the more that God can do through you, because it's a stewardship thing. If he fulfills your dreams, he's expecting you to steward well with what he's given you. And just like any good parent or any good leader, if they see a person who is stewarding what they have given, the resources, they go, man, they are doing a great job with it. They are honoring with it. They're being respectful with it. They're showing favor where it needs to happen. They are consecrating. God's going to go, man, I want to give them more. I want to build upon that dream because it's not just for them, right? Remember in the beginning, God-sized dreams are not just for you. It's for others to enjoy as well. To consecrate everything. Consecrate by honoring God. Anytime somebody comes to me and they like, man, this person dropped some money on me and I'm able to do this now, or I got this position and I'm able to have this lifestyle and the dream is getting out. I got this favor in trying to start this company and now it's flourishing. I'm like, great, awesome, but honor the one that made it happen. If you want this to continue, honor the one that made it. Consecrate this. Whatever it is, consecrate it. And don't forget who made it happen, because you can get inflated and think that you're the one that made it happen. About stewarding the dream fulfilled. Good stewards find themselves as legacy starters. Your dream is not just for you. God blesses, and his blessings reverberate. The endless God sends out his endless love. You get to be a conduit of eternal impact from an eternal God. You let it keep going through you. And I'm going to wrap this up with a bow, right? I know I'm gone kind of long, and I'm sorry about that. This is just really important, okay? I'm going to wrap this up with a bow. So if you've missed every Sunday, and you've missed everything I've said before this, I'm going to wrap it up right here, okay? Nice and neat. Take notes at this time. Okay, so embrace the ultimate dream fulfilled, your connection to God. Dream within your context. If you have breath, dream on. He wants you. He's not done with you yet. Once that dream starts, wait and pray as God begins the journey. Worship and fast as the journey continues. And through the whole process, consecrate all of it to God. Every bit of it. Continue the legacy of acknowledging the dream fulfiller. Your dreams are a stewardship. Steward them well and give credit where credit is due. Don't worship the dream, worship the one who fulfills the dream. So if you want that dream marriage, when it starts happening, consecrate it. I'm living the dream marriage. I have an awesome marriage with Hannah. And I love every minute of it. I mean, all the stupid things that I do, she loves me regardless. All the times when I'm lacking, she pulls up the slack. And she gives me the benefit of the doubt. And she respects me. It's the dream. And she loves me a lot, like too much sometimes. It's scary and icky for people. But she loves me a lot. But at not one point do I say, I'm just awesome. No. It's God. It's God that brought us together. It's God who created her. It's God who created me. And so every time it comes around, I'm like, Lord, thank you for my marriage. You're the one that helped make this happen, God. I just might be a part of it, but you're the one that makes this magic happen. Thank you for your love, the love that we get to have together. Thank you. Consecrate that. If you're going through the dream career and the dream company startup, consecrate every bit of it. Even if you just made it with your own hands. If you're like, man, I literally made this with my own hands. It was me. Well, thank God anyways, because he gave you the hands to make it. Yeah. Consecrate everything. Give it all back to God. Whatever that dream is, wherever it comes from, consecrate it. Because if you consecrate it well, the eternal God will reverberate, and the legacy will continue. And that blessing, that dream won't be just for you. It'll be for hundreds and thousands, hundreds of thousands after you. It will echo because you consecrated. So do that. Keep these components as a part of your process for your dream and watch how God, the living God, shows up and shows off. God's living relationship in you, because this is what happens. People will see the bonfire that you started for him in his name. And you can constantly say, this was God, this was God. And then people far away will see that bonfire. It will ignite a spark in them to dream. And they'll go, man, if God can do it for them, maybe I can have the same dream with God and build a relationship with him. So dream on. Let's pray. God, thank you so much that you love us so much. Not just the point, like you did the miraculous for us. You came and you created this bridge, ultimate dream fulfilled. We celebrated that a couple weeks ago. But Lord, you love us so much that it's not just about the big dream as a humanity, but you love us individually. You love us in our own context, for our own personal dreams, God. And so right now, I pray that we don't lose that spark, that we don't let life beat us down until we don't dream anymore. But Lord, we put more faith in you and that we were able to strive after these God-sized dreams and see you come to life. So Lord, give us courage. Give us peace, Lord, as we continue to wait and pray, worship and fast and consecrate and continue a legacy to see your will happen. Lord, I can't wait to see all the individual dreams that come true because you are alive and well in our lives. And Lord, as a church, I pray for Village Heights and the dreams that we have, Lord, and that what you put on our hearts, that we continue to fight after that dream. Yes, for buildings. Yes, for bigger bank accounts, to do bigger things, to be more generous and more people, to do more stuff. Yes, that's all great. But Lord, ultimately, to make your name famous in the Heights, Houston, and in the world. So Lord, use us. Help us see those dreams. Help us to continue in that path and let your will be done in us. God, bless the mothers and bless Village Heights. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.